All the names in this story have been changed. My aunt is a famous Spanish singer whose name could be heard all over the world in her time. She was like a mother to me, and I lived with her since I was a child. My aunt had an active social life and took me with her everywhere. So from a young age, I got used to camera flashes, was posing masterfully, and was a regular at all the celebrity parties. The paparazzi were always getting super thrilled when they saw me, and their equipment always started flashing twice as fast. And I kindly waved my hand at them and said, "Hey guys," and smiled with my already Hollywood smile. I always knew that I would become a famous singer like my aunt. My aunt also had no doubts about my talents and considered me to be a child with the most expressive charisma and an outstanding musical potential. "My Adriana is a 1 in a million girl. Great future awaits her," she confidently told her colleagues, and they enthusiastically burst into applause, lifted me up like a pop star, and threw me up in the air. When I was in 3rd grade, I spent a year pretending to be a celebrity, watched by hidden cameras, and to hide from many annoying fans. Brightly painted by my imagination, I put on sunglasses and a scarf on my head, just like one of the stars did in a glamorous magazine. It's not surprising that by the age of 15, fame came to me. I sang at the largest music venues in the country, starred in commercials with a multi-million-dollar budget, and posed for the best glossy magazines. My life was perfect, and the future seemed like a fairy tale. But one day, this perfect world collapsed like a house of cards, and it was all because of my aunt. At some point, because of her bad habits, her voice became hoarse and damaged beyond recognition. And because she was nervous about it, she started eating a lot and gained 20 kilos. Her popularity plummeted. Music producers did not want to deal with her. They broke contracts and preferred to hire younger and more slender artists. My aunt rushed to the other extreme. She began to do numerous plastic surgeries to restore her voice and form, but that only made it worse. Auntie's heart was broken, her singing career was ended, and therefore, life lost all meaning. And she turned into a party girl who did not miss a single celeb party and was changing boyfriends like socks. My aunt was generous with money and gave expensive gifts to her gentlemen, who, as a rule, were much younger than her. "Come to your senses," I tried appealing to reason. "Your new boyfriend is having an affair with the girl they hired instead of you, and he's spending your money on her." "It's okay," my aunt answered in an icy tone. "I'll quickly find someone else and give him the diamond cufflinks that I bought for this traitor." And so my aunt spent all her savings. Banks were refusing to give us loans and blacklisted us, and rich and famous friends turned their backs on us and stopped noticing us at all. Now all the yellow press was full of articles with photos of my aunt, who lost her good looks, and vile headlines, which I don't even want to talk about. My relatives' bad reputation in famous circles also affected me. Following my aunt, they began to refuse hiring me, and after a couple of months, we were at a complete zero. It was a terrible test. From a reality where we lacked nothing and wore designer clothes, my aunt and I slipped over the edge of survival. Auntie desperately tried to start business projects, but everything went to dust. To pay for my education and buy food, we auctioned off the last of the luxury items. One day my aunt came into my room and hugged me and said, "Adriana, I'm so sorry this happened. A couple of years ago, my ex-husband and I invested a large amount of money in a business, a well-known American clothing brand. Now he makes a lot of money, and I'm not getting a penny from that." "Why?" I asked excitedly. The deal was signed on his name. I was so careless. I blindly trusted my ex-husband, who had deceived me before. And I didn't want to pay taxes. Last year, my ex and I got into a fight. Now here I am left with nothing, and he won't give me my investment back. God, that was so stupid, and so like my aunt. I was not surprised by her story, but I was very upset. We really needed that money then. Suddenly, a rather strange idea came to me. What if I go to America and ask your husband to give these investments back to us? Unexpectedly, my aunt liked this idea, and after a couple of hours, I was sitting on board a plane flying to the USA. Yeah, it was so unusual and crowded to sit in the economy class, the only thing we had money for. When I landed and reached my ex-uncle's house, he greeted me with open arms and showed no surprise at my sudden visit. "Adriana, what a beauty you are, just like your aunt, or rather the way she once was." He greeted me in a good nature and laughed maliciously at the end. "I think you know why I'm here," I began my passionate speech decisively, but my aunt's ex-husband immediately stopped me and said, "Before you were born, your aunt and I were spouses. although for a very short time. We've been friends since childhood and even sat at the same desk. Therefore, her niece is a dear guest in my home. You can stay here as long as you want. But I want to talk about my aunt's investments. I desperately tried to continue the conversation. There's no need to rush into this, we'll talk about it later, my ex-uncle answered in an icy and intolerable to arguments tone. Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and throughout the next week. I desperately tried to bring up the topic and start a conversation, but my tormentor didn't notice these efforts and didn't answer me. And yet I was determined to return my aunt's money, and I didn't give up. One day at the door of my ex-uncle's office, I ran into a guy of my age. He was so weird that I didn't know what to say. Judging by the ridiculous outfit, he tried to look like Marilyn Manson and looked like a complete idiot. I realized that it was my ex-uncle's son, Dan. "Would you like me to guess your name, oh beautiful stranger?" He began his greeting drawlingly. "Yep, definitely an idiot." I made the final verdict in my head and added aloud, "Of course you know my name. I'm a celebrity and you're acting like a dumbass right now." "I'm not a dumbass," said Dan, "and I know why you came here. And that interesting part is, I can help you get your aunt's investment back exactly 1 month from now, but in return, I will ask you for one favor." "What favor?" I tensed up. "You have to help me get my ex-girlfriend Liz back. She left me for another guy a couple of weeks ago. I miss her and really want to get it all back. You're so artistic, it would be easy for you to play the role of my new lover. Liz will get jealous and come back." For a few minutes, I was silently thinking that the only thing I lacked was a fake affair with such an idiot. But I didn't see a different opinion and decided to agree to this nonsense. My aunt and I really needed our money. "Okay, deal. In a month, your ex will come running back to you like a puppy," I said, and we sealed our deal with a strong handshake. The next day, I was in for some stress. I was going to a new school in a strange city, and the worst thing was, in a different country. Classmates literally jumped on me with admiring greetings. "Oh, it's that same Adriana," one of them shouted in awe. "Spectacular beauty who starred in a toilet paper commercial. You look like a goddess, a fairy from another world. After that commercial with you, my dad and I bought all that paper from the stores near our house." "Ooh, Adriana," he added dreamily. Pulled up his shirt and asked for an autograph on his chest. Other guys did the same thing, while the girls sat aside, pursed their lips, and did not react to me in any way. At this moment, the teacher entered the classroom and had a few things to say to the guys about the circus they had arranged here. I went to find Dan to show me around to the new school, and I found him in the gym. Some guy pushed him to the wall and was threateningly looking down at him. And a pretty red-haired girl stood nearby and watched the scene with a fright. I guess that was Liz. Meanwhile, the bully took a piece of paper out of his pocket and loudly, so that everyone could hear, began to speak mockingly. "Listen to the poem this Romeo wrote. Oh, Liz, Liz, my Liz, magical Liz, you're beautiful like the moon in the sky. I love everything about you, even your nostrils, the crooked upper tooth, and toenails. You are perfection. Oh, Liz, my magical Liz. I'll spend all my pocket money on you." The poem was frankly awful. Absolutely everyone who heard this nonsense laughed, and Liz stood aside embarrassed and didn't raise her eyes to look at Dan. Then I angrily grabbed the paper out of the Hulk's hands and said, "Hey, you dumb donkey, you wouldn't understand such deep feelings." And then I continued in my kitty cat in love voice, talking to my new fake boyfriend. "Oh, Dan, I didn't know you had a poetic gift. You're the best guy I've ever met, and you never cease to amaze me. How lucky we are that last year when you came to Spain, we went to the same cafe. It was fate. But last year we were still dating," Liz said softly and surprised. "Dan was loyal to you," I explained. "He became my boyfriend exactly an hour after you broke up, and I took the first flight to the USA." I took Dan's arms, and we walked away with this open-mouthed company. "Adriana, did you see? No, did you see her face?" Dan started to chatter delightedly as we got out of their sight. "Liz is definitely jealous. You are a brilliant actress." The next day, Dan came to school wearing a t-shirt with a picture of me on his chest and the words, "My Sweet Caramel," written on it. When I approached the school building, he was already in the parking lot. He jumped onto his brand new car and shouted loudly, "My delicious bun! After breakfast, I didn't see you for an hour, 23 minutes, and exactly 39 seconds. I missed you so much." Dan was obviously overacting, and at some point I got very embarrassed. But when I saw Liz nearby, I went up to Dan and kissed him passionately. After this spectacular appearance at school, we continued to act out our fake romance. I gave Dan a couple of acting lessons to get him to stop acting stupid and writing trashy poetry. I told him how to treat a girl so as not to look like an idiot, but on the contrary, to be the most charming boyfriend. Once I even took him to a stylist who, under my strict guidance, was working their magic for the whole evening. And the next day, when we came to school hand in hand, everyone was stunned. It was impossible to recognize Dan in his new image. He'd cut his hair, and instead of it being all shaggy, he now had a stylish and minimalistic men's hairstyle. He changed his stupid, freaky outfit for a simple but elegant clothes that looked very expensive and tasteful. And at the same time, Dan, who had changed beyond recognition, was still obsessed with his Liz. Can you imagine? Today she looked at us 25 times. It's 3 times more than yesterday. He counted every day. One day Liz surprised us both by inviting us to a weekend at her country house with her friends. That evening, Dan and I danced until we dropped. And then the slow music went on. Dan pulled me in and kissed me gently, and at that moment my heart began to beat faster, and butterflies fluttered in my stomach. It seemed to me that Dan felt the same, but suddenly he pulled away and said excitedly, "Look, look, Liz saw us and left. She's jealous again." At that moment I felt a sharp pain and disappointment in my chest. "Dan, Liz dumped you. She's a traitor. She's not worth a hair on your head. You deserve better." "But I love her, and I believe we'll be together," Dan replied, waved away at me, and ran after Liz. I stood alone for 20 whole minutes and waited for him to return, but Dan didn't come back. Then I went to look for him and found him in the kitchen. He was wearing a dirty apron, collecting scraps and trash, and putting dirty dishes in the sink. To my mute question, he said embarrassedly, "Liz said that the cleaning lady got sick. She asked me to help." At that moment, guests burst into the kitchen, led by the big guy, her boyfriend, and started filming Dan with their phones and laughing. It was terribly insulting. I felt sorry for him. Dan said nothing. He took off the apron and left, slamming the door. I had no choice but to follow him, but then someone grabbed my arm, and it was Liz. She looked at me with angry eyes and hissed like a snake. "Dan is still mine, and as soon as I wave at him, he'll immediately come back to me. You're nothing to him. You're two-faced and cruel, and you'll get what you deserve. When I was looking for Dan, I saw your big guy making out with your best friend in the bathroom." I told the truth and pulled my hand away. When I got home, I went straight to Dan's room. He was sitting on the bed and looking at the floor. "How can you let her treat you like this? You're acting like a real wimp. Liz is using you and you're happy about it." I blurted out right from the doorstep. "You wouldn't understand," Dan said quietly. I silently went to my room and sobbed all night. That day I realized that for the first time in my life I had truly fallen in love, and it wasn't mutual. But the next day at school, something happened that turned my world upside down. I saw Liz walk up to Dan and said, "I rethought our relationship and realized that you're the best. I really want to bring everything back and be only with you." But Dan replied without looking at her, "I'm not interested anymore." Hearing this put me in shock. At home that evening, Dan met me outside my room and handed me an envelope. There it was, a check for $50,000. "How did you manage to do this?" I asked admiringly. "It was easy, because I'm the favorite and only son of my dad." So now there was nothing holding me in America, and I took the first flight home. With a large amount of money, my aunt and I quickly improved our financial affairs. I graduated high school and my career took off. Instead of commercials, I began to act in musicals and perform main roles in them. I started getting offers from Hollywood. But the most important thing to me was when one day on set in the spotlight, I suddenly saw Dan. He was wearing that same t-shirt with my picture and a stupid phrase. He got down on one knee and said, "My sweet caramel, I love you and I want to spend my life with you." And then suddenly a huge diamond ring appeared on my finger. And I answered, "Yes, my love."